Civilization Cycle interviews experts and individuals who understand the intensifying cycle of economic, societal, and government upheaval, so you can stay ahead of the changes in our world and keep your family safe. Fortunately for us, we can recognize that we're at the precipice, a point in history where we can all see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us. So let's start the conversation, and welcome to the show.
I mean, we are absolutely at the year's worth of rain in a day phase. And my conclusion, just reading biblical text, historical text, accounts, previous writings of extremes, they used to keep journals a lot of times, a decade of rain in a day. That is what is next. If it continues on the trend, but I just don't see anything slowing down. And I'm always asking, why is the world changing so much right now? I'd like to get your opinion. Why now is all this change coming? It's not organic change, it's forced change. So why right now? Couldn't they have done this 10 years ago?
But the Earth's magnetic fields certainly seem to be weaker than they were 20, 30 years ago. And you can just tell that by the observation of the sun, by the color of the sun, the way that the sun feels on your skin. Ladies and gentlemen, we just look at it. David DuByne, Add Up 2030. We're going to talk about it. The world's gone crazy, literally insane. And I don't know if there's any slowing down in sight or if it's just going to gain more personalities. But David, you're on the forefront. Your house and your homestead got hammered out there in Tennessee. I really like how you are the change you want to see. I remember when we first met several years ago, you were in the process of, I think, moving out of Hong Kong. And if I remember correctly, and now you've got a homestead in Tennessee and, you're living it, you're doing it, you're working it, but you're also dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, aren't you?
Well, we weren't hit that bad comparatively to all these just ruined places in North Carolina and East Tennessee. I mean, I'm so grateful and so thankful that we only had, in my retrospect, minimal damage, some roof damage, some trees down, fence repairs, things flipped over, doors coming off, banged on the hinges and twisted. That's nothing. I mean, nothing in comparison to truly what happened with the flooding up there. And then Spain today, I don't know if you saw that, Spain got a year's worth of rain in a day. The Hurricane Helene was once in a 2,000-year flood that came down, and they got, 30 plus inches in a few hours. And remember, Rex, when we talked about this a year ago, I said, it's going to go from extreme flood to a month worth of rain in a day to a year's worth of rain in a day. And that will be just the trend moving forward. And here we sit, do that full loop circle since LeakCon back then. And we are at a year's worth of rain in multiple locations, including Saudi Arabia, including Oman, including Yemen and Spain and Morocco. And it just keeps building the number of places. And now I do believe there's a couple places in South America that were hit. If you go to this site called thewatchers.net, and SOT.net. They consolidate a lot of big weather events. I mean, we are absolutely at the year's worth of rain in a day phase. And my conclusion, just reading biblical text, historical text, accounts, previous writings of extremes, they used to keep journals a lot of times, a decade of rain in a day. That is what is next. If it continues on the trend, but I just don't see anything slowing down. And I'm always asking, why is the world changing so much right now? I'd like to get your opinion. Why now is all this change coming? It's not organic change, it's forced change. So why right now? Couldn't they have done this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to get more control over the populace? Everybody keeps trying to deflect and go, it's control the populace, control the populace. What if it's not? What if it's something far different? They could have done any of these maneuvers in history from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s to control the populace, but they didn't. Why now is so much forced change here to control, at least on the outside, excuse the populace? I'd love your answer.
Pro Clear Cleanse is the most powerful spray cleaner on the market today. No elbow grease necessary. Pro Clear Cleanse cuts through grease and grime like a chef's knife. Finally, the one cleaner that can do it all. Powerful surfactant cleaning technology cleans ovens, glass, porcelain, even polished wood. Environmentally friendly, less packaging and waste with no harsh smells, pet safe, child safe. 5 tablets equals 1 bottle of traditional cleaner. It's 5 months of cleaning for a fraction of the cost. Behold the grease-erasing power of Odor Crush. Simply drop a tablet into your bottle of warm water and shake it so it is evenly diluted. Spray the surface you want cleaned. Let set longer for tougher grease. Take a paper towel or a reusable cloth and wipe. Done and done. One of the best things about Pro Clear Cleanse, it's you can take it anywhere. Hiking, camping, or on vacation. Without having to buy or bring cleaner, you can store the same potential in the tablets. Then just add water and bam, you have a bottle of cleaner. Order now and make life a little easier and cleaner.
I don't have an answer. I have theories. It seems like 2030 is a key date for whatever reason. And I've thought to myself, I've gone really deep down the rabbit hole, and like we were talking off air, why is the world so out of control? Like let's put the weather to the side for a minute. Everything else at the higher levels that are being promoted in the media, not everything, but much of what's being promoted seems to be just twisted or off or discombobulated. Something's not right. And I'm thinking, why now? Why now? And the thought that came to my mind was there is something around 2030 that's going to happen that I have it's like a return of something. I don't know if it's a return of a breakaway civilization or an asteroid or what, but something around that time frame. And the people that are running the show in the public realms they're like given a task, and that task is you need to have the population in order, and that order needs to be created out of chaos by 2030, or you're not going to reach your parameters. You're not going to reach the task. Like, what's another word for task?
Like your goalpost or something like this. Well, if you're looking in a business sense of it, you're not going to reach those benchmarks or something,
That's the theory that I have. And I think it goes back to a certain place. You know what, man? I think it's the Middle East. I think that there's a super intelligence that's running the show, and it uses the Bible and scriptures as a way to keep people under control, and religion to keep people under control. That's my theory.
Now you're talking a long-term cycle. So coming out of the Younger Dryas era, when society restarted, post exit of the glaciation, say 17,000 years prior to say 15,000 years prior, we were coming out of full glaciation. We'd been stuck in ice for, the better part of 80,000 years, and population was squeezed right near the equator. And we were coming out of that. And that natural flip, whatever it was, the current flowing back into our star that reignited that, put that plasma sheath around to set off a lot more heat, suddenly started melting ice all over the planet. And then here comes the Younger Dryas impact. Boom, comets on ice sheets, air bursts, multiple places across the planet. It wasn't just over Canada. It was kind of, tracked across the planet as our planet was spinning. And that set us back. It plunged global temperatures, 10 degrees Celsius in just weeks, if a month at best. And then, we scraped along there for another 1,000 years and whoosh, right back out as quickly as, after the cloud cover, and the heat was still coming off the sun. It was just our local region that had been cloud covered and water saturated from that event. And then we begin history as we know it, but not right then. I'd say 10,000 or 9,000 years ago. It didn't really start all the way until 7,000 years prior. So where was that 3,000 years of missing time, people, history, society, civilization, construct, government, or whatever it was? There's 3,000 years of a missing piece there. And I do believe that we're into a longer term cycle here. So if we go previous times back, and I would even challenge you to say, go back to the last interglacial, say 118,000 years ago, like what was going on then? Like what kind of constructs were there? What kind of government was there? What types of militaries there were there? Because they are exactly anatomically the same. There's nothing different from us and those persons of the same interglacial one time prior and two times prior to as well. If you're going to go 220,000 years or 225,000 years ago, they had that interglacial. So we've had two interglacials of 10,000. We're on the third one of 10,000 years of warmth. Same body, same mind, same, the magnetic field might have been different. So perhaps the way they were thinking would different, and going around the Yuga cycle would probably have been at a different point versus exiting out of the very dark Iron Age, coming out into this warm period. But we're missing a lot of pieces, and something does return. And I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to go out there and say Nibiru, because if it was really that close, their planets would be out of their orbits by now. like traditional orbits. Like if you just had a backyard telescope, you would see something's in the wrong place. And then we're just not seeing that. So I would say spiritual realms, absolutely. Interdimensional realms, oh yeah, because that wouldn't affect gravitational third dimensional realms in terms of atoms, molecules, planets, orbits. But in an interdimensional realm, absolutely it could. Just saying, for role play exercises.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this then. The Nibiru theory, I completely agree. There would be some type of physical evidence if it was close enough where we would see it even with the backyard telescope, no question. So we can cross that off the list, at least as far as being close enough to observe. The next theory is the sun and the observations with the Earth's inner core, and they're using seismic data. I'm sure you've read the paper also that suggests that the inner core has slowed down substantially. CNN even, and that's when I say substantially, let's put it into perspective. It's like microscopic speed, but it's done it.
I think it's not even a full second, but it's somewhere in that range.
Yes, right. And so if that paper is correct, and if these scientists are accurate about the Earth's core slowing down so much that it's potentially reversed, and that there's some cycle associated with that, we're looking at the aurora borealis right now in places that you usually don't see it. The sun being at a solar maximum is a cycle of 11 years. So that happens every 11 years. But the Earth's magnetic fields certainly seem to be weaker than they were 20, 30 years ago. And you can just tell that by the observation of the sun, by the color of the sun, the way that the sun feels on your skin. So my theory is the sun is definitely involved. The Earth's inner core is involved. But what is the outer source of that? What is causing the magnetosphere to weaken, the core to change? And what I would think of would be some type of either manipulation of the environment through artificial means, or something that is not visible, that's natural, that's causing this big shift. And I don't know what that would be. So maybe all this industrialization is having an effect, but in ways that we don't understand.
It's possible. You got to think about the radio frequency waves that are on the surface of the planet all the way up with our satellites orbiting that are now creating an intertide grid. It's almost like putting a frequency field around. But again, the universe is so large. And I mean, just our star in comparison to the Earth is just so gigantic comparatively, 1.2 million times larger. So irregardless of what kind of tech we had, you think that something that's 1 million times larger plus would outweigh whatever we could put up there, even in a frequency field. But, there's many times in history of accounts through, you're familiar with it too, of many ancient cultures talking about the Earth stopping and then rotating and spinning in the opposite direction.
Right.
Stopping for 3 days, stopping for 8 hours, completely stopping and reversing. And then the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, like multiple times. It seems that, and we're not talking, 50 or 100 or 2 million years ago, something like this. We're talking like several thousand years ago, according to the Chinese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Magi and the Arab star watchers, and so many accounts through history, the Mayans talk about it. I mean, there's times that it's a full reverse, but it's time where time slows down, where you might be in the daylight or on the nighttime for, far longer than the regular duration of what would be sunset and sunrise, like an additional 8 hours or an additional 12 hours of darkness or heat. And that would affect plant and animal life, and a lot of things would get scorched or cold at that time. And by the way, one last thing, solar maximum this time is far, far, far maxity max compared to what anybody out there was predicting. I was predicting that it was going to be declining in terms of magnetic strength, and we were going to head into a grand solar minimum. Not this cycle, but almost every space agency is pointing to, after we come off this one, that next cycle is the one that's going to have really low solar activity. So nobody got it right this time. Not a single person on this planet forecasting got this solar maximum correct. Not a single person. It is so far above even the wildest projections on how active it would be that something is definitely amiss. That if everybody on the Earth that's supposed to be an expert got it wrong, and it's way far above that, then maybe that's that last boom of an engine, when they get that last piston of, and then the engine dies and you run out of gas because something strange is going on where our modern science can't predict closely enough. We're orders of magnitude above. So again, there's so many things in play right now, but really, how is that affecting the human domain here on the planet also? And how can that be ridden on top of to achieve a greater outcome?
When we look at the recent eclipses, that the totality paths and some of the towns that were close to the totality, not directly under, but many of the towns that were within a certain proximity, and the biblical references, one person might look at that and say, oh, they knew, they knew because it was prophecy. And others are going to say, no, they knew the totality of the eclipse because they know the movement of the stars and the planets, so they can forecast that out into the future. And the uninformed will think, oh, it's prophecy. And the informed will know that it's actually a part of the mechanics of the universe. So you could call it prophecy, but it's also the mechanics of the universe. So they're both right. But those that know about the prophecies can live their lives and build their empires around those prophecies. And so with that in mind, I think that there is a group of people that know the future based upon the movements of the stars and the planets. They know the missing link that creates these massive influxes of weather change patterns, etc., hurricanes, climate change, whatever you want to call it. The climate's always changing. I understand. It's always changing, but they know when these epochs happen and they build their empires around these events. So if you are a part of a society, of a group, of a civilization, of a dynasty, of a what's another term for secret society?
Howdy, partner. You know people are having dinner and the smart ones are eating beef. Let me tell you a brief history, or more accurately, a beef history of dinner. Domestication of cattle happened around 8000 BC, but that's not when beef became what's for dinner. We've been eating beef since times before history. The earliest cave paintings have beef eloquently depicted on the walls. Those cave drawings of the hunt were for the aurochs, a primitive bovine. That's right, beef. Like I said, people are having dinner now, and the smart ones, well, they're eating beef. Americans want great food today, but we also want to have great food to eat if things go south in a hurry. Unlike most companies that take the cheapest, worst parts of the cow, then turn them into beef crumbles, whatever that is. They freeze dry them in hopes that their customers will never actually try to eat it. Our premium beef cubes are sous vide, freeze dried, and ready to be eaten right now, or in a decade from now. We want you to eat our beef now, so you can buy more. Prep with steaks, not with beef crumbles. This is a high-quality product. It's all American beef and 100% natural. None of that craziness of lab-grown meat and mRNA jabs. Our beef has a shelf life of 10 plus years. This is high-quality cooked and freeze-dried beef for long-term storage or not. Eat well today and eat well tomorrow. Click the link in the description to get your Prepper beef with Prepper All Naturals, so you will always know what's for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so obfuscated with all these words that are thrown around everywhere. Now when you say it, it just relegates you to kind of the dustbin of history of like, oh, you're talking about the Illuminati. Okay, but there has to be a better term for that of, if you go back to the Crowley kind of doctrines, like those subsets of those that are into the magic world that understand the intersection of solar activity in that magic world. I mean, I'm not into that magic world, but I understand the solar activity, and I understand how those two could be blended, because I'll say the barycenter. I'm not familiar if anybody understands the barycenter. We will be almost nearly at the center of how our solar system, relative to our viewing position, it's going to be back at center 2030. So I rewound all the way back to 1400 using some software, and there was the nearest one that could be found was 1492. Yeah, and 1811 was another one. That's right before the War of 1812. And then I was looking around somewhere like 1860. It wasn't happening. And then 1990, but then this one at 2030 and the one in the 1650 was the closest ones I could find that were similar above the eclipse. Because once you run the model around, you start to get a lot of geometric shapes in there, of the barycenter being way off to the left, right, east, or of our position, north, south, east, west, X, Y, Z axis, depending on, you can't really do that in space, but you got where your axis would sit. But once you run it, you start to get a bunch of geographic shapes, and where the sun spun through right nearly that center between two other geometric, like concentric circles there and ovals. Yeah, it's a 400-year, space of time between that, approximately. It's not exact, so it's not like this is the date, but it does seem there's some longer term cycles. And also very few people are looking at the barycenter in terms of this usage of energy, because I was talking to Jim Lee, and he was telling me that corporations did a huge amount of studies, spent millions and millions in research on just following our full moon to new moon cycle and seeing people's emotions in there, and then what was a good time to sell to them. And then governments took it on and saw when there would be a passive phase, when there'd be an aggressive phase, this sort of thing. But the same thing rang true with corporate entities that were trying to sell product at a time. They mapped it out, and then if you scale it out, you come into the Strauss and Howe 4 turning. But if you scale that out, you're coming into like centennial minimums, grand solar minimums, and you scale it out and you start to come, where's the barycenter sitting in that too? So it all does have, and the stock market is well-known, established science for like hundreds and hundreds of years on how let's say, the thought of humans on the possibility of exuberance or fear based on solar activity in terms of driving markets for longer term periods of time. Generally, at a solar maximum like we are now is the highest the stock market will be. And after we roll off solar maximum, generally you come on to, a stock market collapse or correction, however you like to term that. But everything is so tied to the heavens where we sit. The energy is flowing in directly from the center of our star, off center, just there's so many things to put equations into. And then, you talk about the Schumann resonance and, the KP index, and there's so many things that can affect humanity's thought process at any one given time. Like, that would be a pretty complex algorithm to roll out, but I'm sure it's been done, and not modern time. I'm talking like thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago.
Oh, sure. I mean, the ancient civilizations even go back to ancient Sumer. They were heavily influenced by the stars, the movements, the constellations, and that would link up to their empire and their dynasty and their laws and regulations. So there's that connection with obsession or excitement towards the stars. The question is 2030. Let's go back to this 2030 event. Is it because of an alignment in the stars? Is it because there's going to be something that's going to happen to the Earth where it will create more chaos if we don't have order up to that point? And so they're just doing everything they can. And I'm saying I'm talking about those in the know that seem to be the modern sorcerers and wizards and warlocks and witches. Are they doing their best to get people in these like pockets, or some type of get their thumb over them to where they can have control, so when this event takes place, people aren't just going to go and take down the masters, basically?
Well, that's the only reason I could see it. A lot of people are talking about it's control for this, it's control for that, but it's simply just maybe they know one of these, excitable chaos periods coming in, and that would be the time in, 400 or 500 years of that particular period would be like the apex pinnacle of, if they were going to get overthrown, that would be it. So, there's a lot of layers where people are trying to say it's this, it's this. They're trying to throw you off on 1,000 breadcrumbs, but maybe it really is that simple. It just boils down to the barycenter is at the closest center as, so I encourage everybody out there to barycenter. And also another thing to look at is as it's moving around in its counterclockwise motion, notice when we come to the apex where it's apex, and then on the decline down on the events around in the United States, or I'm focused on the US, but generally it would be around every single continent. On the apex, once we reach that apex, and then the downfall, and then the events that occur during that time, and then we reach the bottom, those same events that bring back the exuberance. So I'm really thinking it's a fear and exuberance cycle that is the barycenter, that maybe is the key to unlocking a lot of it. But I really think it's that simple. The people that have been in power know that this time is, with the barycenter, as center as it can be in several hundred years. If there was going to be something where they would lose power, it's really that simple. They just want to keep power. And there's none of this, all this other nefariousness that people are talking. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Now there's a lot of different models as well. You can run the barycenter. Look for barycenter 2030, and they should show you they'll show you where it is. Yeah, 2030, and it should pop up. Here's some different images. And if you go to images, I'll choose the one. I've been looking through this stuff for the last couple months. It's the black one on your left. And there's a couple other renditions too with a little bit brighter lettering and coloring. Like the models I was running with didn't have a lot of, there you go. So right there's your 2030. Look right in the center of the sun. Well, perceived, again, it's a perception, the solar system perceived to the actual sun itself. So again, it's all about perception from the viewpoint. There we are, 2030. That's about exactly as precise as you can get in the center there. And you really need to trace back into the 1400s. 1632, Rex, I can send you a few. Why is it directly in the center and everything's focused around 2030? Now, like, I don't have a specific single event that's tied into 2030. I just hear it. It's referenced everywhere. You can't get away from it, literally. It's literally everywhere. So what is it about this 2030 thing that's so important that everybody has to know? Everybody has to be wrapped up, but your entire consciousness needs to revolve around it. It's in, okay, you got a big one there. On the right side, it says September 30th. What's that, 1492?
Yeah.
Okay, so I put the opacity on the sun, and this model has run for 400 and so about 400 and plus years. So I only went back to about 1400 AD or so because I didn't want to go further back. So I set the thing at 500 years to go back. So here, this is the total over 500 years almost of looking at this spinning. And you can see it wiggles verily. It's not always at the center. And you can see how wide it comes out. And I was trying to also put at the furthest, widest reaches of this, as far as it can go out, what happens at those points? That's my next set of study versus being right in the center and looking at some of these events on the center. So when we look here, wait at that 12 o'clock position, like what happened up there? And this thing, the only drawback with this model is it does not put the years in it. So when you're doing it, you actually have to stop the model and then mark the year, and then, you put your own hashes on it. And that's one of the drawbacks of this. It doesn't insert years for you. So, look at the 12 o'clock position and look at the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock positions. Like what's happening at those furthest reaches out or what's happening in the direct center. And then 1632. And then here we are. Okay, 1772. Now notice where the sun's position is. And then if we come up to 1811 right there, it's almost right at the center as well. And then if we squeeze back up to 1990, it's very close to the center again. And then if we come up to 2030, we find that. And those are the only times going back into, nearly 1400. That's it. Those are the only times.
Looks like it's above this or above that, the sun in the 20.
Yeah, it's above this time. It's above the cross point there. Why don't I zoom that in for you? Okay, so this is where it's going to be in 2030. It's going to be a little bit above where the actual, if you were looking into a scope, the actual center. But notice the geometry where it sits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's in that very center of the center of the geometry of that, right?
The Pisces viscus or something like that?
Yeah, the Pisces. Because if you follow that down, it does look like the tail of the fish there in the Pisces, right?
The return. When's the return of Jesus in the scriptures?
Yeah, I haven't run this model back to, if you would go back 2,000 years in each, processional cycle, and I guess I haven't run the model back that far. I don't even know if it's going to be valid back that far, but I'm wondering if you come to something at the torus where it would be at the top of the, what would be, or in the center of what would be considered the horns or something like this. So here
Yeah.
we go. This is 1990. Again, it's not really exact. This is a little bit off. So it's close. Like what events happened in 1990? Can you remember? And then we'll roll this back to 1811, just before. This is actually on the eve of the War of 1812. But notice where it's also at two crossing lines, not exactly in the center of that geometry, but getting close to the center.
Yeah.
War of 1812 starts, and the conditions are set for that. Now, if we come back to 1772, which is a few years before 1776, obviously an important date. We were in the middle of the Revolutionary War by this time, and also, getting more into the full-blown end of that. And again, where does the sun sit? Similarly up to what would be the nose of the fish, perhaps. Gets close.
Yeah.
And then if we come back to 1632, this is like the most precise. I mean, this is as close as it possibly gets, at least in the last, say, 480 years or so. All right. And then if we come all the way back here, it's a little bit below the ecliptic this time, 1492, another important date, Columbus sails. Why'd they wait? Well, he could have sailed at any time. They knew the continents were there, the maps were there, they already had it, they understood, but they waited till this. So this is an important construct too, above and below the ecliptic, apparently, as we view it. And that's it. And that's my, and those are my barycenter points here.
That's really cool. And the reason I brought up the reference of the scriptures is in the New Testament, Jesus's followers say, "When will we know of your return?" And he brings up like Jonah and the well, or Pisces in some way, a reference. And then when I was looking at that, it looked like the sun was right above the fish almost. So it was like getting ready to consume the sun or something along those lines. But I find it very interesting looking at that geometry. And I wonder if there's a way that we could connect it to the fourth dimension, like the literal fourth dimension. And if there is some type of interdimensional influence based upon the alignment with this chart and the sun and where we're located, how would we connect that to a 4D chart to see if there's some type of nexus point? That would be very interesting. That would make sense if there's so much influence based upon where the stars and the planets are, and the influence on the planet and the people on the planet and their actions, their movements. Well, if we bring up the next dimension, possibly the fourth dimension, that could be the nexus point because of their location connected to where the 4D is, and because we can't see these things in the 4D. It's beyond our perception. And so we're only seeing the 3D aspect of it. And that's just what's coming through my mind as we're having this conversation.
Now follow me around, and we're going counterclockwise on the barycenter. So maybe it's just I'm reading something into it. I don't know if I am, but I'm just asking for a little advice here. Maybe you could follow along. So if we go where it says barycenter with the cross hash mark in the center, and you just go directly north of that, you come to the year 2008. That's the year of financial crisis. And then we come down 2009, 10, 11, and the financial crisis kind of resolves itself around 2012. And then we really start to, make some headway of recovery in 2013. And it comes all the way to 2019 and 20. And what happens in 2020? And then we are all coming down that trajectory again, all the way until 25, 26. The economy is going to take a hit here as we try to restructure things. Either way it goes. But then it suddenly comes and gets a little better, end of 26, and then all the way until when? Just around 2031. And then look at the complete, incredibly long arc coming out of that period all the way until 2044. That's a full 10-year to come down through the bottom and up. Where generally from 2008 to 13, you're talking a handful of years. From 2020 down to 26, you're talking a handful of years. But if you're looking at the barycenter, and if there is some truth to this being the exuberance or the fear base of how humanity is energy-wise, then that arc coming off of 2030, 2031, that is going to be an incredibly long time of whatever goes on until it flips over around 2044-ish. And a lot of conjecture around then of a supernova and different types of things. That's really far out. But you can see how this barycenter does its thing. So am I reading too much into it from the 2008 financial collapse and then the COVID coming in 2020? And that's why when you go back to some of these other ones there, Rex, on that previous barycenter chart that you showed too, like the start and the end of the Vietnam War is in that one. And there has to be something energetic here that's going on.
What if 2030 is when the masters wake up from their hibernation chambers, their stasis, and it's connected to this point? Like they have in the technology to wake them up at that point in time because of the energy of the universe for whatever reason.
I'm scared and I can't get across the street. My name is Rex Bear. I can't get across the street. Somebody's phone. I thought it was my shit. Look, Rex Bear is scared to cross the street because he's gonna get run over. Look at him. He's gonna try it. He's a runner. It clearly says do not cross, but he's a rebel. Or maybe he's psychic, because now it says cross. Now he's running. Oh yeah!
Aha! Aha! What do you know from funny, you bastard?
Guess I'll just close my eyes.
Turn left here.
Just like right here, up close, doing shit. Little, it's out of the way. And clear as fuck. See? Huh? That's Rex.
Man, I'm in Colorado. I can do that.
And we're behind the dump truck, so I was riding around on the dune buggy all day yesterday like this. The fucking. Oh yeah, it's out of batteries, but I'll use it up right now.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna go.
Why not?
We're gonna go look at the UFO platform, Mesa. The hotspot activity.
Crazy, man. We've got reptilians and shapeshifters and shit. We got all these Anunnaki coming down, descending from the heavens. We're gonna be hanging out with giant Nephilims. We're gonna hang out with coneheads. We're gonna hang out with the insectoids. We're gonna hang out with the small people, with the Greys, with the Robotoids, with the Cylons, with the 5G Matrix networks. It's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited. Ladies and gentlemen, help me, Hammer! Help me, Hammer!
Anyway, yeah, look at all this.
Will you just fucking look at it?
Yeah, I was gonna put a little sticky right there, but
Are we recording this?
yes. Then
We're recording this right now.
Yeah, this is it.
All right, man.
A little bit of battery left.
All right, man. Well, I'm famous in my own mind, so make sure to give me a check. Somebody said I sold out. I said, where's the money, dumbass? I ain't sold shit. I need a check for that. I ain't even got a damn coupon, you dumbass. They give me a fucking coupon, moron.
Yeah.
Saying I sold out. What the fuck did I sell? You sold out, you dumbass. You sold your own text to the Borg.
The Borg.
Because you're sucking on that Borg right now. Turn right. You're sucking on that Borg USB port.
Oh,
Like it's
good
just,
stuff.
like you just love it. You love sucking on that Borg USB port. Oh yeah.
Where do you get those? At your Walgreens?
You get them at Walgreens. You get them at CVS. After you get that, you make sure to get that $5 stupid vaccine. They'll give you, oh, it's free. And the vaccine's free, and they give you $5 off your purchase. $5 off your purchase, and a free stupid shot with extra thimerosal. Hook me up. I want some aluminum shots right now. Oh, look at those side effects. That looks good, but I get $5 off on that.
All right.
Aha! Aha! What do you know from funny, you bastard?
Is independence? What do you think independence is? So a lot of people right now, if you watch the media, it's as if the independence of society has disappeared. People expect a Borg-like system. So Should we boycott 4th of July as well? Is that now considered racist because fireworks now are considered racist? And I don't know what isn't considered racist, but I guess independence is being racist. And on that note, I find it unfortunate because everybody should have an opportunity to think for themselves if they want to. If they want to be a part of the hive mind, they should have that opportunity without being labeled racist. So let's forget about skin color. Let's forget about what somebody's religion or political belief is. Let's look at their morals and values based upon their actions. So how does that work? Well, independence. I think that independence is thinking for yourself, but also working for yourself, being able to create an environment where you can be independent. And how do you do that? Well, you have to know how to grow food. You have to know how to obtain energy. You have to know how to offer a product or service that you can exchange for more energy, more food, and things you enjoy doing. So a monetary system that we live in now of independence that's connected to those that love us so much. Let me give you an example. You take a bank. A bank takes your money, they fractionalize your money, and then they charge you to put your money in their bank while they profit off of fractionalizing your money. And then they can decide when to give that money back to you. Is that independence? I don't think so. I think that decentralized systems are independent. So for this Independence Day, if you enjoy your independence, why don't you think for yourself instead of falling into the brain drain media that says you're racist because you think for yourself? I'll give you an example. Today, there's somebody that was holding a sign for a political campaign, and the gentleman's name is Brown. I think it's a gentleman, it might be a lady, but the name is Brown. And so I joked, I pulled up and I said, you know what? That sign's racist. And at first they were like, wait a second, what? And they could tell that I was joking. I gave them a big smile. I said, hey, I'm just joking. I'm giving you a hard time. But it's as if that is what society has turned into because they're falling for the agenda that doesn't want you to have independence. They want you to suck off the Borg's teat. Essentially, they want you to plug in. They want to plug the cord so far up your ass that they can blockchain your thoughts. Yeah, that's what they want from you, ladies and gentlemen. But that's okay, because I enjoy independence. I enjoy thinking for myself. And micro communities, bringing back local economies, helping your neighbor, helping your local economy, that's what's important. So we're going to talk about it. And another thing that would be great for independence is if we were able to allow these local governments to govern themselves, to allow the people to work with the government, to change the education system where it isn't controlled by corporations just like the media, because the majority of the media is controlled by corporations. 5 corporations control the majority of the media, and most of the alternative media piggybacks off of what the mainstream says. So even if the Communist News Network only gets 1 million views, there's going to be 1 million other platforms that pick up off of what the Communist News Network says and comes up with their own spin. That isn't independence. It isn't independence when you grow food here, have a corporation ship it overseas, process it, and then ship it back to you. That isn't independence. So I would like to see people grow a little bit more of their own food. Even if it's 1%, even if it's one plant, start there. I think that schools should have a class where they require students to help grow the food that they eat at that school. I think that's huge. And Doc Ram brought that up the other day. Thank you, Doc Ram. That's brilliant. It starts with the education system. Environments are changed by a select group of people. Entire generations are manipulated by a select group of people. Entire dynasties and nations are toppled by a select group of people. And if you see what's going on right now, we're starting to see the fruits or the spoils that have been indoctrinated from years of a system that infiltrated our own system, teaching people that they shouldn't think for themselves, that they should rely on the government and the beast system to provide for them. For example, should we really disband the police? Well, let's say we get rid of all the police officers in the world. Then what? Then will there be even more chaos? And if we do that, then will there be a military that comes in that takes control? And then is the military going to be nicer than the police? I don't know. And I'll tell you, I really find it unfortunate for people that have to worry about what they look like because of somebody's prejudice. I get it. But at the same time, I don't. But I know what it's like to get pulled over even if you're not doing anything wrong and your heart beats. I get it. And if you're black or if you're brown, or if you're of a different color, or if you're white and somebody pulls you over that's of a different color, and they're prejudiced towards your skin color, then your heart's going to beat faster. So I get it, but is that the real problem? Or is the real problem a select group of people using those assholes out there that do bad things and then putting it on the media for everybody to watch and playing it over and over and over again? So that's what people think's wrong with the system. So easy to manipulate the world when you control the media. So they control the media, they control the education system, they control the corporations, what you eat, what you drink. They control the majority of the politicians. They control the banks. And when they control virtually all of these aspects of reality, they control the science that comes out. They control the medical fields. That is not independence. You should have the right to think for yourself. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what religion you are, or you could be non-religious. Hey, you could be a reptilian shapeshifter. As long as you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter. It's the labels that they use to take away your independence. That's what they do. They use labels to take away your independence. By classifying you as something that fits their agenda, so they can put that piece in the cog, in the puzzle, and that puzzle is their manufactured puzzle of the Borg. They want to put you in the Borg. Do you want to be in the Borg? It's easier for some to be in the Borg, and if that's what you want, right on. But I will not be assimilated. Abracadabra. Phew! Thank you for being here.
That's very dirty.